There's an article here which hits on a fact. It's called Chapters in History of Daylight Robbery, the State as a Protection Racket by T.P. Wilkinson. I always ask myself when someone says their rights lost, where did the money go? Even when a ship is lost at sea, there's generally wreckage. Of course, the ocean is bigger than the economy, and it's possible that a ship's remains disappear beyond recovery. The price of abandoning the very modest social gains of the New Deal in the US and social democracy in Europe, with the ascendancy of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, this is written a while ago, has been enormous, but not only the US and European working people, but for the rest of the world. In fact, the meter is still running with no indication of when it will stop. In this crisis, everyone still talks about trillions in losses. If these losses are real, then that means the value has been forfeited in favor of someone else. For example, after the Great War, France and Britain were essentially bankrupt. They owned nearly everything to US banks. And I'll go into this con game of losses and what it really means after these messages. Hi folks, this is Alan Watts, and we're cutting through the matrix talking about the state as a protection racket. And that's what it is really, isn't it? It's all extortions. It says here, the other meaning of loss is the inability to sustain a certain valuation of an asset or income stream. The nature of the initial valuation is then the problem. The continuous attempts in the IFRS, the International Accounting Standards, to skirt around the issue of essentially fraudulent valuation, meaning bubbles, creating bubbles out of nothing, illustrate that even the private sector's notion of value, whether book value or fair value, is a product of casuistry, imagination and manipulation. In other words, the losses hidden on the books of the USG banks, Fannie and Freddie, are either national or they reflect claims that were satisfied in favor of third parties beyond the capacity of those institutions to generate income. Again, we know that those third parties are who they are. The losses are essentially sacrificed sovereignty. That's what you sacrifice when that happens. Federal institutions pledge to private persons, corporations, and foreign exchange pirates the state's capacity to pay, derived from the ability to tax the working population. That's what all loans are based on, that the working population will pay it back. You see? It says, beyond any, and they tax them beyond any realistic possibility to extract that income. Well, that's not entirely true. Just as the railroads and banks obtained control over most of the continental U.S. by defrauding the U.S. government in the 19th century, and that's a fantastic book if you read it, The Robber Barons, the surviving banks have defrauded most of the American population of its home today, it says here. Is equity. The endless wars funded by plundering the public treasury and the wealth of other countries are part of that income extraction too. Now the US government is little more than a mercenary enterprise, the most heavily armed collection agency on behalf of third-party creditors on the planet. And not only are they using the military, they're using all these private mercenary corps as well that are not answerable to anybody. Of course, there's plausible denials for any of the beneficiaries of this plunder, since populations weaned on soap operas and crime drama are incapable of examining, let alone comprehending, the most obvious operation of U.S. corporations and their agents, who almost never appear as criminals on television. Their crime drama narrative dominates almost every bandwidth on the critical spectrum, and as a much younger Michael Moore demonstrated on Bowling for Columbine, a corporate crime does not make acceptable television. That's true enough. You're always given little stuff on the street, and the cops chasing guys and car chases and stuff. The most elemental sociological truths plain to anyone who's ever belonged to a club or worked in middle management of a company, namely that democratic and meritocratic decisions are regularly subverted by scheming amongst the ambitious at the expense of the docile. A very important truth there. Become discredited when the insight is applied to the polity as a whole. People who do not think twice about making a phone call to a friend to influence a decision in their social club or place of employment become incredulous at the suggestion that the chairman of a major investment bank would dictate policy to the head of state, whose election he had financed. I don't know if you've ever read the books put out by Peter Newman on the big families like the Bronfmans. You got to read them. And old Sam Brockman said during the whiskey trade, actually they had their pals who brought in prohibition so as they could sell this booze and become incredibly rich. And old Brockman, when his brother was up for killing a cop, said he'll get off. He says, I put every politician in Ottawa, the Parliament in Canada. He says, both sides. He says, I paid them all in. They're all my boys. Nothing's changed, folks. Nothing's changed. From Hamish myself in Ontario, Canada, it's good night to me. Your God or your gods go with you.